Hi, I'm Iris Fu, and your host for How'd You Do That? I'm an advisor at Bullseye Admissions and an incoming freshman at Stanford University studying computer science and economics. This season on How'd You Do That, we're sitting down with our network of Bullseye advisors to ask them about their accomplishments, successes, failures, and college journeys. Do you want to know how to get into an Ivy League as a first-gen low-income student? Or how to get into Harvard for both undergrad and medical school? The medical school has a 2% acceptance rate. What about how to get into the music industry? Win a Fulbright scholarship? We're diving into all these impressive feats and more this season to ask our advisors, how'd you do that? Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of How'd You Do That? Today we're with Lucas, who is a rising sophomore at Harvard College, and we're going to be asking him a lot about how he's accomplished some crazy things, from getting into Harvard to doing some really cool things with teaching and creating a curriculum and a class. Crazy stuff. So I guess first off, we'll start with Harvard, because it's definitely a very prestigious school. So what were some of the things that you did in high school and some of the steps that you took to put yourself into a position to get into a school like Harvard?
First, just thank you so much for having me. It's a ton of fun to be here. In terms of stuff that I've done to actually get into Harvard, I was really big into music in high school. My particular path was a little bit unorthodox. It was less so doing a ton of academic competitions, stuff like that, and more, I did different musical ensembles, varying from basically everything my school offered to a few national things. That was sort of my path into Harvard, and it was basically me presenting myself as, hey, so I'm really passionate about music, and I've done a lot of community incentives organized around music, and really using that as an avenue to engage with everyone else in my community. I think that really, to me, just embodies the broader sentiment that a lot of times you hear, where it's less about what specifically you're doing and more about how you choose to do it, and what it demonstrates. So for me, music was my particular pathway of choice for high school. Since I've come here, I've clearly sort of picked up other things and other interests. So it's nothing that you have to stay married to, for sure.
Cool, yeah. So it seems like some of your other interests has been teaching, and particularly right now about some finance related things. So could you tell us a little bit about like what opportunities or like what types of initiatives you've been able to undertake and how you landed on those opportunities?
Freshman year at Harvard, founded a student organization called the Personal Finance and Consulting Group, or PFCG. Our mission statement is to help improve financial literacy within the Harvard community and within the surrounding local high schools. And so a lot of our initiatives are putting on presentations, which have since moved to sort of online webinar style stuff, and going through different topics that students and local communities have indicated that there's either an interest or a designated need for, and teaching members of that community a little bit more about those topics, sitting down with them one-on-one, consulting with them on how best to adjust their situations from a habitual perspective so that they can better line themselves up financially for their futures.
So digging into that a little bit more, I know a lot of people watching this right now, they probably want to start some sort of a club or other type of initiative in high school. So what would be your top 3 tips for starting a new club at a new school or just in any new environment?
The first thing you're going to want to do is really iron out for yourself what the purpose of the organization is. It's going to make it a lot easier for you down the line, because you're already going to have clearly articulated goals, and being able to tell people, here's what our organization is designed to do, is going to help you a lot later down the line when it comes to recruiting other members and designing executive boards, that sort of stuff. So that would be my first tip, to clearly identify your purpose. Next, and I touched on this just now, but figuring out how best to achieve that. So for me and PFCG, it's been mostly through presentations, just because of the nature of the work that we do. For other organizations, it might be, if you're really interested in engineering, it might be getting everybody together and you have sort of like a capstone project per year or per semester. So that's really going to depend, but it's something that you're going to want to figure out pretty early on, because it helps determine what everybody in your club needs to do, and gives you that plan and that outline for how everything's going to look as you go through it. And then the third long-winded tip, I would say choose something that you're passionate about. A lot of the best organizations are things that can exist over a longer term. And so if it's something that you're starting as somewhat of a passing interest, and it's fine if something starts like that, but generally the goal is to see it develop into something that's a little bit more of an integral part of who you are. you're probably just going to find it more personally fulfilling. It's going to be something that you're really going to enjoy, the projects that you're working on more. And also, it's something that's going to be really contagious for other people. And they're going to be able to see how dedicated to the work you are.
So this is like a very common question that students have. It's, if I have an idea and I need other team members, how do I actually convince them to join, and how do I make sure they're committed and dedicated to the project?
Your goal is to unite people that have a common passion. Odds are in any relatively populated area, if there's a broad topic that you're really, really passionate about, whether that's, for me, personal finance and education, or it's psychology, biology, odds are you're not going to be the only person that is really, really interested in that. Publicizing, hey, I want to start a group that this is our goal, and anybody else who's interested in doing this, let's talk. I remember for PFCG, actually, I had very much the startup feel of gathering people inside of my dorm room and, okay, cool, you're interested in this. Hey, me too. Let's get a direction going and go from there.
Moving on to your book, it looks like you have a book on negotiation alongside a professor. So a lot of high schoolers are also interested in, like landing research opportunities or any type of opportunity with a professor, kind of getting themselves out there and more into this academic realm. How did you get that opportunity, and what has that experience been like?
For me, it began as adapting a current project. And so Harvard has a course on negotiation. And as one of the capstone projects, what everybody does is design a case study. We had about 6 or 7 different case studies that we had originally developed, and then we'd field tested it with other students. That was sort of the in-class component of it. At the end of the semester, what I did was I was like, hey, look, I'd love to bring this sort of content to other people, whether it's other Harvard students, because not everybody can get into the class, or whether it's high schoolers, people in other colleges that maybe don't have that sort of program, and just increasing the accessibility. And so our chosen method of going about that was to design a curriculum. And so that started with me getting together everybody who was interested, and it ended up being about 20 to 30 people. We first went and had somebody in charge of each of the case studies, and then set up our leadership structure like that. And so those people ended up making up sort of the core team that I've been working with throughout the remainder of the semester. It's very much been a group effort from a lot of people to refine those case studies and really get them into a place where they're sharp and they're able to translate well to different contexts. Then it became explaining all of the surrounding theory and frameworks that those case studies use, and how to find them, how to apply them to like your life more broadly, and turning those insights into sort of the more written portion of the book. I think it comes back to the first thing you're going to start with is identifying a problem. And so for me, that was, hey, not as many people could be learning about negotiation and developing these skills as there could be. And so then it becomes, how do you go about solving that? And one of the things that we're actually now doing as somewhat of an extension of the book, we're toying with the idea of partnering with one of the clubs that's on campus. And Harvard has these things called winter sessions. And so that's where students come back a little bit early to campus, and they spend about a week in sort of a very intense workshop type thing. And it's oftentimes just people that are interested in learning more about a subject. And so one of the things we're currently now exploring is the possibility of that club using our curriculum to actually facilitate those workshops with other students. And so that's just really illustrating the point that the way in which you choose to solve that problem might branch out into several different forms, and it doesn't have to necessarily stay as you originally thought of it. In terms of, finally circling back to your original question after my long tangent, but research specifically for high school students, this is something that can be really challenging depending on the field, depending on your area. I think the best way to approach it would be, if there's any universities or people that are doing research nearby you, to just shoot them an email and explain, hey, I'm interested in studying whatever it is that you're studying, and I would love to be able to explore this topic more. I've seen the kind of work that you're doing, and I'd love to get involved. Is there any way that you would recommend I might be able to do that? And probably 99 times out of 100, you're going to get either a no or nothing in response. But at the end of the day, you only need one person to say yes, and then you're good. So I would say persevere in that endeavor. And even if it's something that at times feels discouraging, just know that really you're only holding out for a single yes. And so it could be the next one.
Is that how you approach the professors?
This book specifically, and actually for the work that I've been doing this summer with him, where I've been designing the same course that I actually took. I emailed him, I think, starting over winter break, and just was, hey, so I'd love to continue working with negotiation in some capacity, whatever that may look like. If there's any opportunities, let me know. And that continued maybe every 3 weeks until about May. So it got to a point at where after everything with COVID hit and we all got sent home, it sort of put things on hold for us, because by that point, him and I were discussing different possibilities for ways that I might be involved. And so it was, hey, so let's take some time to figure stuff out, see what options are still available, and then go from there. And I actually hadn't heard from him for about a month. And so it was right as summer was starting where he reached out to me and via email and just said, hey, so are you still interested in working together this summer? And I was like, oh, yes, absolutely. I'm pretty sure I've never answered an email faster and with more spelling errors than I did in that moment. Yeah, and so I reached out and I was like, hey, yeah, I'd love to, let's schedule a phone call. So from there, it just developed on its own, but absolutely just maybe kind of bugging them is, and you don't want to go overboard, and you always want to be polite and all of the obligatory disclaimers. But in terms of my approach, that was something that I found worked for me.
Okay, so now this summer you're working an internship with another professor. If you could fill us in on how you got that economics.
For sure. So I actually got it through my TF, which is, for anybody unfamiliar, Harvard has a bunch of really weird lingo for all the different positions, so don't worry. It's basically a graduate student who works as almost like a student teacher. And so I had her for my economics courses throughout my freshman year, and I was interested in sort of getting my feet wet with economics research. And so I reached out to her towards the end of the spring, and so I just said, hey, if you know of any economics research, I'd love to get involved. And she actually responded and said, hey, if you want to work in my lab, I'd be happy to connect you with people there and we could get you involved. So for me, that was actually just expressing my interest in doing that sort of research to her. I was fortunate enough to have her handle a lot of the rest of it. But I think really that's just going to come back to, if there's something that you're interested in doing, it can never hurt to reach out and tell somebody about it. Say, hey, I want to do this thing. Do you know of any places where I might be able to go do that?
It adds on to the theme of what we're talking about, which is reach out, be fearless about that. Now on to the internship. So this is with the same professor that you're writing the book / curriculum with. You're also working with him this summer to better a course at Harvard. Is that right?
Yeah, so him and I have actually worked. It's just him and I. Him and I are working very directly together. And we have gone through several of the course's exercises. And because Harvard is going fully online for the following school year, this has meant we've had to go through and rethink a lot of how the course is actually taught, both from a method perspective and from a what topics do we want to cover. And so we're going through both the what and the how. And I actually just finished up with that officially for the summer as of, I think, Monday. And so I'm meeting with him again on Thursday, along with all of the other TFs. And I'm actually going to be staying involved with it during the semester. And so I'll be working on sort of a week-to-week consultant type role. Him and I have been going through and almost from the ground up redesigning things.
How have your past experiences with some of the things you've talked about, maybe other things you haven't, how have they shaped your approach as an advisor?
I would say maybe the biggest thing that I've taken from those personal experiences into Bullseye would just be giving students more reason and more freedom to be themselves, because that's going to be the place where they really shine through the best. And it's in their creativity, it's in them talking about the things they're truly passionate about. And again, just to bring everything full circle, it has to do with the idea of, it's not about what you do, but how you do it, and demonstrating that there are things in my life that I'm passionate about and that I want to do.
What has been your favorite moment as a Bullseye?
Time and time again, the thing that stands out to me is working with the actual high school students themselves, because getting to sit down with all of them and hearing about their lives and the things that they're interested in and why they want to go places that they do, it's one of those things that's just, it's so exciting for me. And you're able to help them and teach them a little bit more along the way. Both of those things are very much a big part of what I enjoy doing with people. And so Bullseye being another place for me to manifest that has been wonderful.
Thank you, Lucas, for coming on. Hopefully everybody watching this enjoyed the episode and found something insightful. So yeah, thank you, Lucas.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Bullseye Missions has an amazingly talented network of advisors, and Lucas is no different. Take initiative and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And lastly, be yourself. These are some insights that we took away from Lucas's endeavors into getting internships, writing a book with a professor, and so much more. I hope you guys took some valuable insights from this episode as well, and we'll see you in the next episode of How'd You Do That?